the problem with the corporate model is that you can only target problems where there is a sustainable business model. So what do you do with problems that are, impossible to solve because the people touched by the problem cannot pay for the solution? That's why you have communities. You have foundations, local communities, NGOs, and they try to find solutions through volunteering. And so it's a very powerful model to fill the gap. And so science nowadays is also unable to cover all the different subjects. And there is a lot of problems that are underexplored, and there is also a lot of people that are misrepresented, underrepresented in the world of science and innovation, a lot of minorities. And so the community-based approach for science innovation will enable that by providing the opportunity for anyone to participate and to create projects together. So this could be very powerful. So how can we make this happen? Open laboratories are something that is almost getting, a normal thing. It's becoming a normal thing. Fab Labs, Maker Spaces, Biomaker Spaces, is getting, everywhere. And so all those laboratories have been kind of like pioneering also community approaches to innovation, and it's been great seeing how they grow. I have been myself also working in Biomaker Spaces. I founded myself one of the very first Biomaker Spaces in the world, La Paillasse, based in France. And but what I've been experiencing is, even though those laboratories are very numerous, there are plenty around the world. There are so many members that they don't necessarily collaborate with each other. It's more about what can I gain personally going to a makerspace and doing my own project or making like a small local team. But it's never been about how do we create like international collaboration to target complex problems and bring like strong and powerful solutions that can be shared with others. And so I was always frustrated by the fact that we had that potential, but we are not using it. So how to connect all those individuals together? That became a goal. So this is the kind of like the beginning of my story, just back in like 10 years ago now. And I was a PhD student in biology, in the early age of synthetic biology, and I just had heard about the starting of DIY bio, do-it-yourself biology in the US, and it really matched my own vision of what biology could really be, how biology could really be used. And so I wanted to do the same. So I brought the movement over to France and started with the first open laboratory for biology in France that I call La Paillasse. La Paillasse in French means the bench, the lab bench, if you want. And so this is the first version of La Paillasse squat in an abandoned building that we use in the suburb of Paris. So it was a free laboratory, but fantastic foundation to build an experiment, without worrying about cost or anything. La Paillasse later on grew much bigger and arrived in Paris. But for me, this was a fantastic platform to experiment on new models of collaboration for doing science and innovation. For example, here on this image, you have a designer, Marie-Sarah Adonis, who I've been working with at the time to create a way to produce ink based on bacteria. And so that was one of the very first time that we were exploring how to grow ink using microorganisms. That later on became a startup that is called Pili. And Pili nowadays is one of the leading startups for producing ecological dyes to replace the petrochemical components that you find in the industry. So it's been really interesting to see how by opening a space for exploration, by offering the opportunity for new kind of ideas that would not normally be able to be explored normally in institutional settings, and by collaborating with people who are not normally the one that you will be addressing for innovation, that we were able actually to create beautiful ideas and beautiful proof of concept. So this for me is a real revolution. It's not only a scientific revolution, it's more of a sociological revolution, a societal revolution, because we by decreasing the cost, to access technology, to access the dynamic of thinking about how to use science for your own good or exploring subject of your own interest, we provide this opportunity to, and we give the technologies to more hands, especially people who are not considered professionals, but it will be also their own responsibility to explore new ideas and new problems. And so this diversification is very powerful, because it's basically how a new industry were born. That's how, for example, personal computers, were born in a sense, with the fact that at the time in the 70s, computers were very expensive and very big machines, but students at the time could come together in garages and build their own computers using parts that were becoming cheap. And so we see the same thing happening in biology and in other areas of science, and that's very exciting. And so my point is that we have a missed potential. When you look at the number of active contributors to science, so number of people publishing in peer reviewing journals, that's about 8 million people. That looks like a lot, and actually it's a lot. It's never been that much in the history of humankind, but still it's so small compared to the number of people who got access to higher education and could contribute to science and innovation. And so the point is, how can we recover part of that gap, so that we have much more capability of exploring local problems, helping local people solving local problems, if you want, or collaborating at the global stage to solve problems without huge cost. And that's one of the problem, for example, with the pharma industry, is that it costs so much to develop new drugs or new technologies that at the end it cannot be distributed evenly to the whole population. So, but if we can decrease the risk, by distributing the risk over to a very large population, that changed everything basically. And another point I would like to speak of, I think it's kind of important, and it tells also about the crisis in the academic world, is that the chances as a young individual to get access to resources to explore your own ideas is not the same today as it used to be like 30 or 40 years ago. What you see here is some statistics about your average chances to get an NIH grant. NIH is one of the main grant agency in the US, and as a researcher. So in the 80s, you could see that the average age was about like 40 years old, and but with time people get older. But for me, the most important point is to look at what's going on here. If you're less than 35 years old, like your chances today of getting access to a grant is very small. And so how is the young generation able to cope with that? Well, they become entrepreneurs. They find actually new paths. And this is interesting, because if you compare, for example, with two of the most famous scientists like Einstein and Darwin, well, they both made their main discoveries before the age of 30. So it just shows that it's important to provide opportunities to the youngest also, because that's when you're the most bold sometimes. And so our institutions sometimes can fail at offering those opportunities, and they are especially not equipped to work with open communities. And so we need to reinvent the way we work, basically, the way we support these kind of new approaches, and especially by solving an accessibility issue. What do I mean by that? Is that on one hand, you have a lot of people who have quite a good idea on what they would like to work on. They have identified the problem, but they don't have the right resources. They can be researchers, who don't have the right resources at hand because they lack funding or they don't have a big enough team. It could be entrepreneurs, could be also civil servants, even activists. And so for them to find a community of contributors can be very hard. On the other hand, you have students, professionals, patients, citizens, people who would like to contribute, but don't know where to find the right problem to work on. And so the point is, how can we connect those both populations? Especially the fact that if you work in innovation, it's not the same network as if you work in education or if you work in research or if you work in the industry. Those networks are different. They work kind of like in silos. But at the end, people share the same skills or sometimes the same motivation, and so we need to be able to bring them together. And so that's the thing we would like to solve here, because at the end we will be able to provide opportunities to people who are not given the right to contribute to research because they are not, for example, researchers or entrepreneurs, and we'll be able to target problems that are currently not enough explored by the scientific community. So, like rare diseases, for example. So that's why we need like a platform, if you want. Like we need to find ways to be able to facilitate these kind of connections. And you have platforms existing today, for research, but all of them are only dedicated for academics. That means that again, we consider that only academic scientists are able to do research, but there is no reason why science should be the monopoly of academia. Science is a method, it's an approach, it's a philosophy. So it could be done by any scientist applying that method. So we need to basically provide a platform that helps any citizens to be able to contribute. And that's the reason why we have created Just One Giant Lab. So Just One Giant Lab is a non-profit organization based in Paris. And for us, it's very important that it is a non-profit organization, because at the end, it will be community-based. That means that a lot of the effort and the value being created by Just One Giant Lab is being created by its community, by you, basically. And so being a non-profit means that we can totally reinvest all the value being created into the community, and which this is very important, because nowadays we tend to see innovations as toward making profits, and that's not the only way. So Just One Giant Lab, or Juggling, and it's a digital platform that we launched back in July 2019. So it's been almost a year and a half now. And the goal was really to provide a simple way to connect people so that they could create teams and projects together, but also we could ourselves as an organization support those teams and help them achieve more. And so I'm going to present you a few things that we've done, especially with the Open COVID-19 initiative, which is a program that we launched back in February to help fight the pandemic. But what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to give you a little demo of the platform. Let me share you my screen again. So here I am. If you want to test Juggle yourself, you can go on app.juggle.io. I invite you to register and navigate and to create your own profile and also bring your projects and share your needs. So the way it works is it's foremost at first. So the way we created it is kind of like a social network, if you want. And then on top of that, we are building different kind of tools. So you can follow what's going on in your community. So if you follow people, you get to see what's going on, in their life, but in their scientific life, like in the way they provide, they contribute to projects. If there are projects that are sharing news, you can navigate within the community. So right now we have close to 5,000 members community that spans across more than 90 countries. And so you can search for specific skills, and those are the latest members that just joined. You could actually go for, let's say, like molecular biology, for example, and here you have like people who actually said that they had molecular biology as a skill, and you can, I don't know, I'm just taking a person in randomly. So this guy is called Javier Uzcategui. And so if I click on his profile, then I arrive on his page, and then I get to know more about him. And so so here he actually wrote in Spanish. So there is different languages that you can use on Juggle. But you can see that he's based in Venezuela, in Caracas. He's a full-time student, and he's very interested, in data analysis, molecular biology, genetic education, biochemistry. He's working currently on one project, so we can see which project it is. And it is one of the IGEM team, actually, regulation for CRISPR-enriched enzymes. And so we can click on this project to know more about it. It was part of the IGEM policy hackathon. And we can actually read more about the project directly. We can ask to join the project, for example. But also, if we go back to Javier's profile, we can either follow him or contact him directly. If there is something we want to ask that person. So it's a way to also connect with other members of a global community that are sharing the same passion as you, like want to do open science and have an impact on the world. And so you can build teams together. So if I go back to exploring members, we can go and see projects, for example. So here it is the same. You can look at different projects that have been developed within the Juggle platform, and you can use keywords if you want to look for specific project attached to specific skills or problems, or you can just navigate through here. And so, for example, here is a project that is probably going to speak to you, and it's doing open enzyme production for making COVID-19 diagnostics possible. And so the idea is to create all basic methodologies and tools to make open enzyme production possible. And so here you got all the details about the projects, what they're doing. So it's kind of like a small wiki, if you want. And what you can do as a project is you can share your needs. So for example, here they're looking for more labs collaborating with them for doing some cloning or some of the lab work, basically. You can share documents. They shared actually some of their results, or here it's their application for one of the macro grants round. So I'm going to talk about that a bit later. Or you can also share some news about the project, what's been going on recently. You can share some reports. And so if you follow the project, then you'll be able actually to see this in your feed. So that's like the basic logic of Juggle so far. Very soon, what you'll be able to do is also to create your own community within Juggle. So your own space. So you're not only being able to create your own profile, your own project, but if you're, for example, part of a makerspace, you can create a profile for the makerspace, and then you have like this whole space where you can invite your members, your projects, and animate your own community, create your own challenges, etc. Another big features of Juggle are the programs, and programs are a way to bring the community together and to support that community for achieving a specific goal. And so Open COVID-19 goals is that to develop open source solutions to fight the pandemic. And And so it's been a fantastic adventure since February. And so we gathered a lot of different members across the world. We have close to 1,500 active members that joined, and it's been incredible. And some of the most interesting projects has been, for example, diagnostics tests, low-cost diagnostic tests for COVID-19, and those tests, we have more than 5 or 6 diagnostic tests in development within the community, and 4 of them actually got in semi-final of the X Prize, which is a famous international innovation competition where normally you only find startups and big laboratories, but here we had 4 of the Juggle projects being there and being selected by the community, even though they're community-based. And so that's a big sign to show that being a community, you're actually able to develop projects that are on the same level of what you would normally find in startups or pharmaceutical companies. Let me go back to the slide deck, because I have some more slides about the presentation. Here we go. So at the end, we have a massive user skill set. By having close to 5,000 members, and it spans really across a lot of different areas, like in data science, engineering, biotech, medicine, design and art, also management. It's very large. Like, you have a pretty good chance of finding someone who has a skill that could be of interest to you, and you can contact that person and start working with him or her, for example. So that's very exciting. And so we celebrated our 1-year anniversary last summer, and so we did a little animation to show the growth of Juggle across 1 year, and it shows where people were located mostly. So most of our network is based in Europe and North America. We also have a good family of members in India, so we are very happy about that. And now we're also working with local communities in South America, in Africa, and we would love to work more also with local initiatives in India to see how we can help each other. So I was talking about the Open COVID-19 initiative. And so far, the project spans across 5 main challenges, like basic understanding of the pandemic through data analysis and simulation. You have also validating existing solutions in clinical trials, for example. We had a partnership with one of the core hospitals in Paris to do that, but also prevention, diagnostics, and treatment. And one of the things that really was, I think, life-changing for most of the projects that was part of the Juggle community and the Open COVID-19 community is that they could actually access funding. Look at it this way: most of the projects that joined Juggle and Open COVID-19 were composed of people that never met before. They met on Juggle. And so they don't have the capacity to ask for funding to an organization, to an agency, because they don't have a formal existence apart from being a team on Juggle. And so we've seen it as it's our responsibility as a laboratory that supports those distributed teams to fund them. And so we've been working with different partners, such as the AXA Research Fund, to be able to provide directly funding to the teams. And that has been life-changing. And so the way it works, we call it microgrants, is that any teams, any project can apply for a microgrant to Juggle, but the reviewing process is fully transparent, meaning like your proposal is open. You can find it, on your project page. It's the community reviewing the project. It's not Juggle. It's not the internal team of Juggle. That's very important. It's the community itself that will decide which projects are good enough to be funded by Juggle. And so it's based on a simple system where reviewers answering many questions about the impact and the feasibility of the project, and then we compute a score. And automatically, if a project is above a certain threshold for those post-impact, it is automatically funded. And that's basically what you see here. And so far we have funded more than 30 projects across the year. And it's been interesting because at the end, if a project works very well, where it produces very nice results, it can ask funding again. And so we have funded several projects several times, like up to 3 times actually. And the amount of money that we distribute is between 1,000 and 5,000 euros per project. And so that's a very interesting model for supporting grassroots innovation in a sense. So also big advantage of a community-based system is that we, when you look at it, we have such a large community that it would be impossible to manage with a centralized team. We have a team of 15 people. It could be considered a large team, but even with that, we cannot just monitor or review or onboard everyone. And so we have to rely a lot on the community. And so that's the fact that Juggling is very much community-based for everything that we do, really helps with that. So for example, for the monitoring, we have a biosafety and biosecurity board, which is composed of members of our community. And they created together guidelines for biosafety and biosecurity that we use as a framework to indicate what is a project that is eligible or not to be helped by Juggling microgrants or be part of the community. So for example, we have been in discussion with a project that is developing open source vaccines for COVID-19. But because they were not yet entering that biosafety and biosecurity guidelines that we had created with the community, they could not yet enter Juggling. And so we are working with them in order to help them achieve that higher standard. And so that's a very positive, constructive approach here. The same for reviewing with the open peer reviewing system I just talked about before. And then finally, the onboarding. Onboarding is so important. Like being able to feel welcome by the community you're joining is really, really important. So we couldn't do that at the heat, at the highest heat of the pandemic. We were onboarding more than 200 people a day. And so we couldn't do that by ourselves. And so many members of our community stood up and did the onboarding themselves, and so we relied a lot on them, and that is really fantastic. So, oops. So those are a few numbers on Juggling. I said them mostly through the presentation. We are very happy to see that the Juggling community is very spanned across the world, and so we try to be as inclusive and as possible. Right now, we are actually developing a specific program for Africa to go and support local communities and local open science communities that would like to work on local problems, or local African problems. And so we found partners to make this happen and to find funding so that we can share also funding with local teams. So that's very exciting. And so we're looking also for ways to make this happen in other regions of the world, and see how this kind of framework, this kind of platform can help existing initiatives to thrive. This is our current team, and we've been very blessed, by its members, and it's been an incredible year. A lot of those members are actually part of the Juggling community first, and so we found them because they were volunteering on Juggling, and so we saw they were motivated, and so we invited them to join us basically and become like full-time contributors. I couldn't also skip a very important part, which are our partners and who made everything possible so far. And the AXA Research Fund, I told about them. They funded a lot of the Open COVID-19 initiative. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to have this magnificent development. It's very powerful. Once again, what's happening right now is, we probably are making the first, open source diagnosis test that will be available and developed by a community. That's big news, and so it could radically change the way in the future pharma could be developed, pharmaceuticals could be developed. So it's being able to be supported by visionary partners that understand this kind of paradigm shift is really important. IGM has been a core partners. A part of the IGM competition has been supported by Juggling. APHP, which is one of the core cluster of hospitals in Paris, has been very helpful in also testing some of the innovations developed by the community in hospital settings, etc. So it's been very exciting, and so I would like to thank you on this and leave you with questions to ask me. If you want to know more about Juggling, you can go to juggling.io. Obviously, you can contact us also if you want to we host with you citizen science communities or project or programs, and we could even help you design and assist you with those programs directly. So very exciting to be here with you. I hope that we'll be able to work all together, because I've been following what the BioReader community is doing, and it's fantastic. So looking forward to it. Thank you very much. So I don't know how we can do it for questions.
Questions. We are open to all and any questions. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in chat box. In the meanwhile, sir, I was watching your presentation throughout, and I saw the slide where you talk about the impact you've made across the world. You mentioned numbers, you mentioned the kind of biolab you feature, and you mentioned so many things. And it's really great, really inspirational actually to watch you and your team make all these efforts to solve a problem instead of focusing on it and going into its root cause. And I understand that problem solving comes from understanding the problem itself, but again, there are very few people who stay up until the end to solve that problem after knowing everything about it. And the kind of efforts that you make to solve all these problems in all these categories, so it's tremendous, truly. Thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey, and as I was saying earlier, I think we are onto something quite big here in the way. So far, the way we approach science and innovation was through existing entities, existing institutions, with models that were created and developed during the 20th century. But those models are not, well adapted to the new generation, like where the digital generation, and so because those institutions it's very hard for them to change. It's one of their strengths is that they're stable, but because of that, it's very hard for them to change. And so being able to provide an interface for them also to interact with communities is very important. And I think that, for example, if we talk about education, a lot of students, it's very hard for them to find the right projects to contribute to gain experience, because it's hard to identify projects. Even your own professors don't have necessarily the network, to offer you all those opportunities, and it's not their fault. It's very hard globally for everyone on this planet. So being able to provide a platform to do that, and a service in a way, we want to be able to work with many programs in schools across the world so that students can find projects, they can contribute to, or they can work together. And I think so far, after a bit more than 1 year, we have about 5,000 members. I think that in 5 years, I hope that we have at least 10 times, if not more than this. And what that means is we'll have resources, we have a capacity that will go beyond much of the, most of the national research agencies. Like our capacity as a community to target problems and to solve those problems together will be enormous. And so I'm thinking of climate change, I'm thinking of the issue with biodiversity and or land use, for example. And so those problems are complex, and we need to be able to come together and attack the problem from many, many angles. And so if we can distribute that task and that risk across a much larger population, that would be super helpful, especially by also creating open source projects. So by creating commons is very powerful because we can share the results across the world without restrictions.
That shows the kind of person you are, and I'm very, very glad that I was able to host this event where people like you come up and talk about making such changes in the world, making such an impact in the world. I'm just very honored to be a part of this today.
So I see one question from Silvana, and she said, I really believe in working in community, but always wonder how to avoid from industrial stealing. How do you deal with this? It's an important question. Here, our position is that we don't care actually about industrial stealing, because the point is, if there is industrial stealing, it means that the project is actually good. And so if one industry can steal it, anybody else can steal it too. And so that's the principle of being open. So the point is that it's not to have industry stealing you, it's to have companies coming over to the community, say, I'm very interested in this and would like to also help you finish the development of it. Because at the end, even if you do a project, you still have to develop it further. Like you have to bring it to becoming a whole product, and that also is a risk by itself. You have to invest. And so what we see with the diagnosis test, for example, is we have already a lot of companies across the world developing diagnosis tests. You have probably like hundreds of different diagnosis tests for COVID-19 existing today. So why are we creating more of them? Well, because none of the existing ones are open source. And so so by being open source means also that the cost of development is very small, because most of it is being developed by the community. So the cost of the test at the end will be extremely small. So any company will be able to take the recipe once it's been approved, and certified by authorities. And distribute those tests. And what we expect, and we are currently working on that, we're working on a model where Juggling can also stand as an entity to represent the community, to go through all the certification process, to be able to do the clinical validations, and to be able to talk also to companies and partners that would like to take the project and make it into a product. Because most of the people in the community don't want to be entrepreneurs necessarily. They want to be able to contribute to something. They want to do R&D. Some of them want to develop companies, and that's perfectly okay. And we have a few startups also being developed from projects that were on the platform, and we can only encourage that. So the point is that companies, even industry, have to invest a lot in R&D. And that's the main reason why a lot of problems are not addressed, because it's considered too risky, or the solution that is being developed is too expensive. So I think that in the future, we can see more collaborations between companies and communities through this kind of interface, like through Juggling, for example. And that is very exciting by itself.
Sir, there are more questions in the chat box for you to answer actually. Do you want me to read them out for you?
So I see that Mr. Mahfouz is asking a question. Do Just One Giant Lab provides online working space on project days, and whoever interested in the project can access that working space? So the current working space that Juggle provides is somehow still a bit limited, and so we're actually working on that. We are on the first version of the platform. What it enables you is to be able to invite people, share your needs. You can also have your own page where you describe what your project is about. You can put links also towards that link to other platforms such as GitLab, for example, or a wiki or your own website. The goal is that your project becomes visible, and so you can connect with the global community. What we are bringing to Juggle early next year, like in 2 or 3 months from now, is the ability to create your own spaces. Like it will be like your own bubble within Juggle, where you'll be able to be in control of your own community. So you'll be able to, let's say, if you're a lab, you know, in a research lab, and you have a lot of like several people working on different projects, or if you're a makerspace, the same. You'll be able to create your own space, have the members of your own community and the project of this community being there, and being able also to see what's going on within those projects. You'll be able to share information about what's going on within your lab, and you'll be able to invite also external contributors based on specific needs that you will be sharing. And so this is just the base, because what we are doing here is also you know, building on top on all those layers. Like what we're trying to do is to understand the needs of everyone to improve the platform. So the platform itself is open source. And so we have a lot of you know, people volunteering also to develop the platform with us. And so what we do is we work with you know, either partners or projects to improve the platform and to understand what kind of features could be of interest to them. And we co-develop those features. So if you have some ideas about stuff that you'd like to see on the platform, don't hesitate to share that with us, and then we can discuss about how we could implement them. So there is a question from Mugeni Raymond. So that person says that I have a dream that at a certain point in time, I will work wholeheartedly towards having a laboratory in my community. May you share some of the challenges you encountered when it came to the implementation of the idea of Juggle and how you found solutions to them? It's a very important question, because the path of being an entrepreneur is full of challenges. And one thing that I find very important, you will face problems all the time. And one thing that makes you able to cope with those challenges is to have a good team. And it's like the team makes everything. If you find people who are sharing the same vision as you and the same passion, and you're able to work closely together toward that vision, I would say anything is possible. It's really not about the idea necessarily. It's really about how you can implement it successfully. And so finding the right people, it could be just one person at first, it could be two, you know, and then it could grow. But having a team of people that wants to work together is a beautiful force of nature. And so I would say that you don't be afraid of changing or adapting your ideas. The point is usually your first intuition is partially wrong always. Is based on only a partial vision that you have of reality. And so it's by going on the journey of an entrepreneur that you will understand the problem better. And so you have to adapt your own vision. And so I think that if you want to develop a laboratory in your community, Mugeni, definitely it will be about how can you start small? How can you implement a seed, something that can grow? And like, for example, I started with a small laboratory in a squat. I didn't have any money. And so I used an abandoned building with some people that were passionate by the same thing as me. And we built that lab together using lab equipment that we could find in garbages, in the garbages of laboratory. So it was a €0 laboratory. And that enabled us to experiment, to produce results, and to basically show that the approach was feasible and interesting. And so we grew from that. So always try to do a first proof of concept. Start always small, and go from that, and always have a good team around you.
And that's how you win hearts of all the attendees present here. To anybody who needed tips. Also, we'll be taking more questions in case the audience has any.
Yeah, I see a question from Neha Kriti. So while discussing about Juggle, there was an option of joint projects. So is it accessible for everyone? It is accessible for everyone. So if you see a project that you like and you like to contact the members of that project, you can actually contact them, and you can also ask to join the project team. So that's the whole point of Juggle, is to see that we are all together, in this world. And so if you bring your project on Juggle, you will be able to be asked by other people of the community for them to join you. Like so, it's something that is very powerful about Juggle, I think, and it's the very base of the very foundation of why Juggle exists, is to enable, like you, Neha, I don't know where you are based, probably in India, and if you see a project or some people that, let's say, are in Brazil or in France, you'll be able actually to contact them and work with them. So, and the inverse is true. And so that's why it's called Just One Giant Lab. The idea is to create this global laboratory, this global community, right? And so if if we all work together, there is nothing that we cannot solve. So that's the whole point. I see Suryo Purnomo asking from Indonesia. I saw some spots in Indonesia in the Juggle map. Is there any possibility for me to see that project and maybe join them? Yes. So the first thing you probably need to do is go to the Explore page of Juggle and maybe look. Sometimes it's not mandatory, but people can indicate a location. So you can type Indonesia, for example, as a keyword, and see who is from Indonesia in the community. You can contact them and see if they are attached to any projects. So I see one question about Juggle in Africa, and that I should speak more about that. So the motivation here is that there are a lot of Africa is a big region in the world, and so and I've been working with some of the local communities that are trying to develop open science there, and I can see that like in any part of the world there is a lot of potential, but because institutions are not as developed sometimes, or don't have as as much capacities as what we could find, for example, in Europe, the idea is how can we provide a support for community-based science. And so if your institutions cannot accommodate for a lot of people, then supporting local communities could be very, very powerful. So the point is to work with local organizations and local communities for them to use Juggle to develop projects together, to identify problems that they would like to work on together, to be able to connect with research laboratories or partners, and basically accelerating their projects. And so we're doing this in partnership with the French Development Agency and the AXA Research Fund also, and so we are developing different partnerships in some. First of all, we are concentrating our efforts in Ghana, for example, or Cameroon, and so it's going to be a proof of concept that will be developing starting next year. We'll be opening this new kind of program. And so, so the point would be to, as we did with Open COVID-19, to be able to for local projects to apply also for microgrants, and so to be able to develop ideas, and that those ideas can be eligible for collaboration also with researchers. We're working with different research institutes based in Africa, and so they will be sharing some of the ideas and some of the projects they're working on, and also some of their needs, so that professionals and students will be able to join those projects to contribute. Because, for example, we're talking about a lot of technology projects, but if you look at social sciences, humanities, those humanities are equally important as technological innovation or hard science, if you want. And humanities lack even more of resources. And so we have a few projects on the Juggle platform that's trying, for example, to analyze the impact of the pandemic on human rights. And so they use a lot of data across the world. And so, but they need help from data scientists. And so we are connecting them with data scientists within the community, but also from different schools, forming, teaching future data scientists so that they can work also on research projects being part of the curriculum. And so this is a very powerful approach where everybody wins, basically.
All right, so that was great. Thank you so much, Thomas sir, for coming. Thank you so much. I will now be announcing the networking sessions because given the responses that we received yesterday for the Hello Darwin session were truly amazing.
I will say bye-bye to everyone first. Thank you, and see you all on Juggle.
Definitely see you.